No
I got
Charlie
the
tonight.
flu last week.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for our regularly scheduled Tuesday, April 9th council meeting at 7 PM. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll.
Charlie Davidson, George Glover,
Here.
Ben Salzetta,
Here.
Charles Schwenke,
Here.
Terry Osborne,
Here.
Troy Hill,
Here.
Brandy Bailey,
Here.
Jim Schrader.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Very good, thank you. And Councilman Davidson did let me know he wasn't going to make it due to a work conflict. If you'll please rise, Councilman Salcedo is going to lead us in the invocation, and I will lead the pledge.
Let's pray here. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening that we have here, another beautiful day you've given us. And as we assemble here tonight, we'd ask your blessing upon all that takes place tonight. May you give wisdom and direction to each of us as council members that have to make decisions that affect the citizens of our city, as well as those surrounding areas. We'd ask that you'd give wisdom in that. And then with each one that's taken time to be here tonight, we pray that you'd bless them for being engaged in the civic government that they've decided to set aside time for. We'd ask that you be with our first responders, protect them, keep them, watch over them, be with our military men and women who are serving and protecting us. We ask that you be with our leaders from our president all the way down to our city council leaders. Bless tonight, we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with approval of the agenda. Jim,
Move to approve the agenda.
George,
I'll second that.
thank you. Motion by Jim, seconded by George, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Awards and presentations. Dana?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have two proclamations this evening. The first one is National Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas children are vital to our state and city's future success, prosperity, and the quality of life, as well as being our most vulnerable assets. And whereas all children deserve to have the safe, stable, nurturing homes and communities they need to foster their healthy growth and development. And whereas childhood trauma can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects throughout an individual's lifetime, affecting both the current and future quality of life of a community. And whereas communities that provide parents with the social support, knowledge of parenting, and child development, and concrete resources they need to cope with stress and nurture their children, ensure all children grow to their full potential. And whereas prevention is a community responsibility, effective child abuse prevention strategies succeed because of partnerships created among citizens, human service agencies, schools, faith communities, healthcare providers, civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, the business community, local, state, and national governments. And whereas we acknowledge that in order to solve the public health issue of abuse and neglect, we must work together to change hearts and mindsets through storytelling and sharing, center the needs of families, break down bias and barriers, and inspire action from expected and unexpected partners in prevention. And whereas we are committed to advancing equitable, responsive, and effective systems that ensure all children and families are healthy and thriving. Now, therefore, the Mayor and Council does hereby proclaim April as National Child Abuse Prevention Month and urges all citizens to recognize this month by building a narrative of hope for children and families through collaboration and the creation of an ecosystem of primary prevention that does not currently exist in this country.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, and our second is Arbor Day, which we do every April. So Arbor Day, whereas National Arbor Day is April 26, 2024, and the theme for Arbor Day this year is ensuring our earth and trees upon it are all happy, healthy, and growing to be as strong as they possibly can be. Whereas in 1872, the Nebraska Board of Agriculture established a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. Whereas trees play a role in combating climate change, cleaning the air, producing life-giving oxygen, providing a habitat for wildlife, are a renewable source for paper, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, the mayor and council does hereby proclaim April 26, 2024 as Arbor Day in the city of Park City, Kansas, and urges all citizens to plant trees to promote the well-being of the community today and for future generations.
Very good, thank you. Ben?
Yeah, just as a, not for Dana specifically, but just as a point of privilege, I wanted to say welcome to Mayor Ashley from Keachai. I'm not recognizing her for that position, but concerning the previous proclamation on child, yes,
Abuse Prevention Month.
yes, I met Ashley first. She worked with us on getting our foster care license and has been engaged in that area for a number of years. And so I don't know if that's why she's here is representing that or not. Okay, I figured as much. But she's phenomenal in what she does in dealing with that with DCF and DECA and those organizations. So thank you to those out here who are committed to working on that on a day in and day out basis.
Yes, and I would say she actually reached out to me and asked about doing this proclamation, and I'm very honored and happy that they brought it forth, and thank you guys for being here tonight to get us to do that. Very important issues. Thank you. And to public forum, I have one person signed up, Sheila Officer. Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sheila Officer. I've been a resident of Park City since 1987. What brings me here tonight is the issue about cats. I am sick and tired of cats in my yard, my front yard, and again in my backyard. I visited with your code enforcement officers about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and was told that this is a roam-free colony community. So I'm here to talk about that. In looking at the ordinance for Park City, looks like Chapter 2 governs animals, and it specifically says in Chapter 2D that when it becomes a public nuisance or on the property of someone else, then I guess it becomes a problem. Not really sure, because if you read further in the ordinance, it simply says that domestic cats can roam. I don't know whether it's because of their nature that they're allowed to do that, but I don't want them in my yard. I have several that live on my block. I don't know who they belong to, but I am formally issuing a complaint against roaming cats and ask that the city do something about that. Now, if dogs aren't able to roam, they have to be on the leash. Why not cats? Only because of their nature to be curious? That's not enough. And that's not acceptable to me. So, again, nuisance. It is a nuisance for me to have my neighbor's cats or someone's cat in my yard, digging in my garden, in my backyard, under my bedroom window, yowling or sounding like a baby. That is so disturbing at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. Nuisance as defined by Webster. It is an unpleasant or obnoxious pest. They are obnoxious and a pest to me. Looking further down in the ordinance, it says and talks about trespassing. Okay, if your domestic animal is noted to be trespassing or on someone else's property, that is considered to be trespassing. Webster defines it. Trespass to land, an encroachment on the owner's privacy or property interest. It is an encroachment on my property interest. I no longer want the cats in my yard. So that's why I'm here tonight, to address the issue, to see what action can be done that's not on my part being accountable, that on the part of the city to be accountable for it. So I am open for discussion and I am open for questions. Thank you so very much. None?
Sean, I'm going to pass this back. If you would have her, just put her email and maybe contact phone number on that. That way it's not publicized, so somebody can follow up with Ms. Officer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, nobody else has signed up for public forum tonight. We have no staff reports. We're on to consent agenda. Do I have a motion? Ben,
Yeah, I'd make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Jim.
Second?
Motion to approve the consent agenda by Ben, seconded by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. On to new business. Discuss and consider approval of a resolution authorizing the offering for sale of 2024-1 temporary notes. Larry, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Larry Kleeman with Ranson Financial Group, the city's financial advisor. You have before you the resolution to authorize a temporary note sale at next month's meeting. This is probably one of the larger temp notes you've had. You're a growing city, so there are a lot of projects that the city is considering financing. This is a roughly $26 million temp note, largely for street water and sewer infrastructure, bulk of which, most of it, which would be special assessed to the benefiting property owners rather than at large. We would get this rated. I expect it to be a double A minus like you currently are, which should get a lot of good bids from around the region, around the nation. And one other thing I always like to look at is your debt ratio. State law limits you to 30% of your assessed valuation, and a lot of debt is exempt. So after this were to be issued, you would be about 17 or 18%, so still well under the state law debt limitation of 30%. And you're a growing city. I advise Mays as well. Mays is growing, and as their assessed valuation grows, that means their debt ratio gets even smaller because the denominator gets larger and larger. And so, growing is a good thing, and it takes debt to sometimes finance that. So this authorizes a temporary note sale next month at your March 14th meeting. It authorizes us as financial advisor. Gilmore & Bell is your bond attorney to prepare the necessary documents. And then I will be back here next month to present the bids, and you can approve and move forward with it at that time.
Great, thank you. Any questions of Larry? Ben,
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve resolution 1203-2024.
thank you, Ben. Jim,
I second.
any further discussion on that item? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. On to item 5, receive and discuss presentation of pool survey and concepts from Schaefer Architecture.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Back in November, Council approved a proposal for Schaefer Architecture to assist with exploratory plans for this new city pool. In cooperation with Water's Edge Aquatic Design, the agreement outlined the creation of a proposed plan complete with the images of amenity options and an opinion of probable cost for consideration and public feedback. We have tonight with us Scott Stiles as well as others from Schaefer and Water's Edge to present their findings from the citywide survey and renderings of possible concepts that depict the preferred amenities.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Scott.
Mayor Lanier, City Council members, Mr. Fox, thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. I'm Scott Stiles, Director of Business Development with Schaefer Architecture. Schaefer Architecture, hopefully you've heard of us a little bit. We've been involved in the communities since 1957. We thrive in small communities, and I'd be remiss to state that we're very excited about the opportunities of what Park City presents with your leadership and everything you've brought and the exciting opportunities in the next few years we see Park City growing. And congratulations to all of you, and what a great community you're building here. So congratulations. But, you know, we thrive. We're all small community people. And through this survey we've conducted on the pool study, I think you're going to see some outstanding results. Robert Love, who will be heading up this opportunity, has done a lot of the legwork. He is on vacation this week. Robert has done a lot of our aquatic centers in the past, along with the YMCA's. We have a lot of the YMCA contracts throughout the United States. Taking his place tonight is Gary Holler. Gary Holler was the head architect with Valley Center and the Rec Center as well, and has done numerous of those over the years. Gary's been with us a little over 35 years as the vice president of our company. And along with Gary tonight is Brian Hill from Water's Edge. He'll go over the concept. So I'm going to step away and introduce Gary, but once again, we appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.
Good evening. Again, I'm Gary Holler. I'll be going through this pretty quickly. There's about 12 slides, 12 questions. Have any of you seen these results at all? So it's okay. I see some nods. That's good. If you have any questions, just blur them out to me. We do have a spot where we can have questions at the end. So the first question was, do you support development of the new outdoor aquatic center in Park City? I should take off my glasses. We did get about 500 responses, which was fantastic. And 92%, as you can see from the slide, were favorable, which is really great. This is about, of the 500 people, that's about 17% of your population. So that's quite a few. Normally we look for about 10 to 20%, so you're on the high end of that. So we're very positive. Next slide. Oh, sorry. There are a couple slides in here. Well, that's fine. No, you're good. The next one is, how likely would you be to purchase an individual season pass at the park? As you can see, the very unlikely is pretty high. However, I think you'll see in the next slide that the very unlikely is probably families. So if you have a family, you'd probably vote, well, no, I won't buy an individual pass, I'll buy a family pass. So if you go to the next slide, you can see family passes, which is great. Obviously, families bring more people there. And normally, you don't see a lot of individual passes anyway. And then the next slide kind of combines the two. Like I say, most season pass holders are family passes. Any concerns with higher percentages are of the very unlikely responses of individual passes are set by the higher responses of the family passes. So we see that as a very positive. Next slide. Am I going too fast? Okay. How often during the typical summer would you or members of your family utilize the new park center, aquatic center? Every day, you got those people that probably swim every day, so you're going to have one or two, or 21 that actually said we'd be there every day. But what's exciting is that the results are very positive, and 65% support attending at least once a week, and 90% support attending at least once a month. So we see that as positive. While some attendance may come from other communities, we see the core support and attendance may be would be from the city's residences. So, and then we did ask one question: what other aquatic centers, swimming pools, splash pads, do you frequent? And so 32% said YMCA's, not unusual. There are a lot of them in Wichita. Lions Park, which is not too far from you. Splash pads, 22%, and other water parks would be 12%. So a lot of people that I think you're going to be able to capture in the area back to Park City. The next one, what we did was we asked SurveyMonkey to show us, SurveyMonkey's a survey, SurveyMonkey to show us the most used phrases or words that people said to the question, what features or amenities draw you to these facilities? Not unusual that pool was one of them, but also slide, lazy river, which was interesting, splash pad. And then all of these had probably responses of 10 or more. So kid-friendly, toddler, family was a big one, diving boards, obviously. Zero entry is big for small kids. But I was really surprised by lazy river. So, next slide. Does anyone in your household have interest in any of the following programs? If you look down at the bottom and go up, this is the number of individuals that responded. So the most would be 350, kind of at the end there. Recreational swimming at the bottom was about 70% of everybody that said that. Birthday parties, which was unusual. I mean, a lot of people would like to have maybe their kids have parties here. Water aerobics, swimming lessons, special events. So you see a lot of family interest around this pool, this facility. Next one. The amenities your household is most interested in seeing included. Body slide was the biggest at the bottom. Shade in water. A current channel. You know, all these are kind of unusual things you don't normally see in a lap pool, which are all the things that kind of draw people that aren't lap swimmers, you know, families in. Taller sprays, toddler slide, shallow water play. So all of these are very great amenities. However, there's a price tag associated with those too. So let's be honest. Let's see, number 9. What percentage, or what was your age when you answered this survey? Obviously, we didn't have anybody under 18 take the survey, or at least they weren't honest. Most people were probably adults, parents of kids. Next slide. What are the age ranges of people in your household? So you'll see a lot there in the middle, 35 to 44, obviously parents. And then down there at the bottom, from 10 and under, are a majority of the kids that are going to be there. So a lot of families answered this survey, which was great. Next one. Where do you reside? There we go. 91% right here in Park City, which was great. Within Sedgwick County, 9%. I'm assuming there's some outliers there that answered the survey. And then I think we had 0.7 that were outside of Sedgwick County. So all of these that are answered are within your boundaries here. And then the last slide, we asked for additional comments. You know, that was kind of a free-for-all. I did put up a couple here. I would love a pool that all ages could enjoy. We can make sure our children can learn how to swim without having to drive to another city for lessons. Anything we can add to the city to encourage my family to be outside, count me in. Another positive, this would be amazing to have in Park City. And then there was one that said an aquarium would be great to have, a much better benefit for our community. So I thought that was interesting too. Any questions on the survey that I could answer before Brian comes up? It's a great survey. It was very, very positive. So again, this is Brian coming up to look at some concepts.
Thank you, Gary. My name is Brian Hill. Up until recently, I was actually the aquatics director down in the city of Wichita and also ran O.J. Watson Park, so a little familiar with the operations of pools. I've been with Water's Edge. This is my 3rd year now with them. We'll go ahead and start this next slide. Just talk a little bit about what you guys had. You know, it kind of shows the square footage and the shape. You know, it was an older pool. There was a little bit of a water leak in its time. Had one of the old wading pools there. Excellent site for gutter ball. Pool was definitely known for gutter ball around the area. I don't know if we're going to bring that back in future designs. Gutter profiles have kind of changed a little bit, but just, you know, Park City was known as one of the highlights of the gutter ball leagues back in the day. But the pool's gone, and so we took the information from the survey and we created a concept based on all the features and amenities that came up with either ratings of 6 or higher. And that's on this next slide here. And this just kind of shows you a rough sketch of what this concept could look like. Back in the original area, We talked about a body slide was the number one thing. There you see the body slide located. There's a little current channel opposite of that has some bench seating areas. Really want to focus on shallow water. Shallow water is important. We want to make sure that this site is very family welcoming, able to have something for all ages. So it's a nice big zero depth entry with shade in the water. Great little seating bench underneath it that you don't see in the picture, but it's a great place for people to relax, watch their kids while still being able to stay wet. The toddler slide. You still have some lap lane area though. It's important that we don't forget about recreational swimming and having a program area where we can offer swim lessons, water walking, aerobics, all those other kind of programs that you would look at for a pool like this. Go ahead and go to the next slide. We've got a picture. This is a pool up in Iowa that's kind of similar design, so it kind of shows you what that kind of looks like on the site. The concepts are really neat drawings, but seeing a picture really does give a little bit more detail on what something can kind of look like. Obviously, there's some differences here. Actually, flip back real quick to the last slide, if you would. There was one other element I wanted to point out. There was a lot of talk about splash pads and visiting splash pads in the surveys, and that was something that was really highlighted by many people. So we did put as an option of a little splash pad over here on the side that could be accessed from the pool area. But one of the neat things about this design here is it can be fenced to a way to where the start of May, you could actually open the splash pad up while the pool is still fenced off and closed. And then at the end of the pool season, when all the lifeguards are back at school, you reopen those gates and the splash pad can run until October if needed. So it gives you a way to, yes, you're putting a lot of money in this site, but you're also getting a lot of time out of it. It's not just something that's only open for the summer. It's something that can provide a little kind of an aquatic amenity for you throughout the year. I wanted to highlight that. Thank you. We'll go ahead and go to the next one as well, please. This is just a higher level, just kind of show how it fits in the space. There's a lot of things to like about this and how it looks. We did go ahead and develop one more concept though, and we'll go ahead and go to that one, please. This one gets a little bit more square footage. It spreads the fence out quite a bit more. One thing I've noticed is, people go to the pools, back in the day it was to swim. Really, right now, they're going to the pools for the experience. Yeah, they'll get in the water a little bit, but they probably spend actually quite a bit of their time, unless you're talking about the little kids, out of the water. So we want to make sure we provide space for them, so there's a lot more green space to relax in, to spread out. The current channel in this concept is a little bit bigger, not just kind of like the little small one that you saw. It's not quite a lazy river. Lazy rivers are definitely more water park elements. Love to put one on this site, but you're also talking about a lot more lifeguards that would be needed to get something like we're not talking like Rock River Rapids level, but still the current channel gives you that kind of access and gives you that kind of feel for it. Really pulls out on this one. And on this site as well, even though diving boards were not mentioned as one of the higher amenities, we went ahead and put a diving board on this one with a little bit deeper area, just to kind of show what it looked like. Because like I said, we want to make sure we have something for all ages. Your teenage, young adult range, they really like the deep end, they really like the diving boards. We want to make sure we have an option for them to have something to do at the pool as well. This concept, this is another pool that's over in Missouri, also very similar in shape and size. Like I said, just kind of cool to see it. Real gives a little bit more of a how it can actually fit and how it can actually look and work in your community. And on the next slide, you just kind of see where that kind of sits in. On the spacing, for both of these, we estimate that the cost recovery would be around 80% based on the program that we do. And you can see the differences on this, what's the capacity on the number of people you can get, which I think is very appropriate for the size of this community. And I think that leaves it open to questions for either on the concepts or if there are any questions that you thought of, please.
Yeah, I don't understand, is a current channel the same as a lazy river?
It's similar, but I would consider Lazy River quite a bit longer. Lazy rivers are going to be something, sometimes you need those you need the big inflatable tubes, and you kind of sit down and float, and they can take 3 to 6 minutes. These current channels, typically you don't have the inflatable in. You just kind of get there. They're high powered. They kind of swirl you around. They can last anywhere from 45 seconds to about 3 minutes.
You're not in favor of the lazy rivers?
Oh, I love lazy rivers. I think they're amazing. But looking at your concept and your site, the lazy river would dominate the pool area completely, and you probably wouldn't get a lot of those other spots. And when we're looking at from operation, because we're also being very cognitive of what the operation is going to be cost for this, we don't want to look at a really awesome pool and then not have any money to run it. You would need quite a bit more lifeguards than what you were currently projecting you to get at this time.
Correct.
Ben?
Yeah, thank you for taking into consideration that last part there. Because anytime you do surveys, you get wish lists,
Sure.
and wish lists, sometimes our appetites are bigger than what we can swallow. So I appreciate that consideration in this proposal. With this, when you talk about how you came to this size, this amount, capacity and such like that meets the sizing for our community, are you thinking within that already price ranges for admission passes and things like that? Or is this just kind of based upon general information that's common?
A little bit of both, actually. We look at kind of the national trends, looking at like the NRP website, things that we know. We also kind of canvass local areas, like we know what the admission prices are in this area. We know what to expect that the attendance is going to probably be like, especially those first several years. We're watching the cost of lifeguards and the cost of chemicals, because those are the two things that are the most expensive these days. And that's, so we kind of weigh it on that. And so as we develop the concept more, we're starting to put in some programming. Here's what we think the return would be like. I always like to estimate my revenues are coming in at low and my expenses a little high, just to give me that kind of wiggle room to make sure we're in the right range. And so that's kind of how that helps us develop that concept.
And as the city continues to grow, how feasible, obviously, land makes a big part of this, expansion growth or so along of the aquatic area as the city moves forward? I mean, what type of lifespan do you consider this to be on?
Sure. Oh, that's a great question. There's actually probably two answers to that kind of go together. Just the base, pools that are built today, we expect them to have a good lifespan to 40 to 50 years. When done right, when done properly, proper maintenance, things are done well, we expect them to last for quite some time. One thing I do like with quite a bit of the designs we look at, we always want to program spaces. There's going to be some changes, because the pool is, whenever you build it, it's going to be awesome, great attendance. By year 5, you'll see that dip. What can you do now in year 7, 8, 10, 15, whatever, to make some changes, change out some features, add something different, add something new? We always like to program something in there so it's not just that same pool that's been there from 50 years ago, so.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You made a comment about the land available. Have we selected a land site?
We have not.
I don't believe so.
We have not, sir.
Okay.
George Glover?
Yeah, as evident by the number of responses, this has been a lack in Park City for some time, having a swimming pool. So I'm encouraged by the number of responses that we've had, which encompasses a lot of the middle-aged family-type groups. My concern, are these two of the concepts that we're looking at? My concern as always is parking. Can you go back to the first one and the second one and give us the amount of parking for each concept?
One more, just to get that other bigger picture, what's spread out a little bit when we're down. Thank you. I think we've got it on there.
95?
Spaces, yes.
That's on concept 1 with 4 handicaps?
Correct.
And a bathhouse. How about on number 2 concept?
A little bit more.
Okay, and that's a bigger facility, correct?
This one's a little bit bigger, correct?
Okay. To be honest with you, I like both of them. I do specifically like one. As concerns as always is having that splash pad open after the pool closes and having being able for the kids to use that. I like that encouragement. I know there's been concerns about hiring lifeguards in Wichita. How do we get those folks in here without having to close down the pool or closing down other amenities? So that would be a concern of mine as well, is how do we keep those folks here? And I know there's a lot of high school kids or whatnot, but maybe we can get some other age groups as well, help with that as far as the lifeguards.
Oh, 100%. I think water watching is one of the biggest things that we're looking to kind of bridge that gap. Find people who have the ability, they're not necessarily lifeguards, but they've taken some training to learn how to watch for things and then be able to alert the appropriate person when something's happened. The nice thing is you do see a big trend, especially because you've got people that are going to want to stay in Park City. You've got kids here that want to stay here. They don't necessarily want to have to go lifeguard down in Wichita. It's going to be fun. It's a new facility. They're going to be excited. So once you, and I'm going way into the weeds on this, and I do apologize, but once you build that excitement and that culture and you get the right people in place and that fun, they're going to help you with your recruiting. And I think it's going to be, a good situation. But yes, we definitely want to make sure we don't design something that's going to require something that's just not tenable and just not, something you guys can operate.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, George. Brandy?
So it looks like in your concept, it's just overlaying where the old pool was at.
At this time, correct.
Okay, so is there any other concepts that you've looked at or come up with if we choose a different site where maybe the area is bigger or there's more options?
Oh,
I mean-
absolutely. There's, like I said, this is still early on in the concept phase. This is just based off the results from the surveys
Okay.
to show what that would kind of look like. This is not saying this is the pool and you have to decide today one or two. Like, we're gonna have to go through a whole process of really filling out, this is what it's gonna look like. It's gonna change a little bit, it's gonna morph a little bit to what, and if the site changes, then the layout absolutely could change with it.
Because I guess that's part of my thing. I mean, yes, I'm in favor of doing something, but I don't know that I like the location of where the old pool was at. So,
Jim?
I know we're just discussing survey results, and the survey was great, and great response, and great ideas here. So my mind's kind of moving ahead to the economics of the whole thing. I assume that's probably what your next step would be then too, to figure out what we want, figure out what this thing's gonna cost to build, what it's gonna cost to operate and maintain, and all of that. I mean, we would do sorry, I'm a banker here, projected cash flow.
100%, yeah, like you said, like, right now, we're at this level.
Yeah.
And that's why you said, from where we are, I feel comfortable saying we're at about 80% cost recovery. Love to be able to push it to where, yeah, this pool's gonna pay for itself and you're gonna be at 100% cost recovery. Unfortunately, that's just not reality. It's very hard. In my time with Wichita, I did say I had 2 pools in 3 years actually generate some revenue, but those were very special situations and my programming there was insane. So, can it happen? Sure, but I think 80% with what we're looking at, with what we anticipate your program is gonna be like, is probably about where we're at.
Yeah, I think I'm a realist and go, yeah, it doesn't pay for itself, so it's an expense category. So when you say 80% cost recovery, so that's,
I should have clarified, thanks for bringing it up. I'm talking about operations only. I'm not talking about the debt service to build. I'm only talking about the year-to-year operations on maintenance, utilities, lifeguards, chemicals, all those kind of things that go into it. We think that where we're at now, you could probably run this pool at about 80% cost recovery.
okay, I understand then. Thank you.
Yes.
Ben?
I just have one other thing there, and again, based on what you said there, is there a plan right now to, as you're going through this, you talked about the stagnation basically of not changing things out, not planning ahead and everything. Obviously, things change over time and such like that. Would there be any benefit to, as we go through this process, at least internally within design team, however this, to plan for some of those potential changes a few years out, so that way, almost like master planning on a smaller level? Obviously, we can't master plan 45 years out, but 5-10 years down, hey, these are some things that we might want to consider, so that way we're already thinking about it on the front end.
100%. Great question, and that is actually something that we do also with, as we get down to that final concept, then we start throwing in these are the options like, hey, here's this slide. This slide's gonna be viable for X amount of time. At some point, you're gonna have to either spend a lot of money to repair or replace. Here's what something else can happen. And so we kind of have that already in. And what we like to do is also talk to you about budgeting, so you're not like waiting. We like to show those like, hey, here's the maintenance of it. Here's what we would recommend as the maintenance for you to start putting away for. Because like I said, I'm not talking on any organization that I've worked for at any time whatsoever, but I do know that it's just a general rule around the country. We build some things and we don't have the money ready to keep them going. I'm glad that in the area we're looking at that, we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. And you guys are going to have something that's going to be a good amenity for quite a bit of time.
Good, Ben?
Yes, that was it.
Jim?
I had thought of one more thing.
Please.
What's kind of I know in residential, the trend is for saltwater pools. What is it in these big commercial pools? Is
And I'm sorry, for the what type pools?
what type? Saltwater or
We
chlorine?
tend to not, when we're talking about commercial and municipal, we tend to not do saltwater. There are still some codes that don't allow us to do that.
Okay.
Kansas is one of 3 states that does not have a statewide aquatics code. So we default to the Model Aquatic Health Code that the CDC's put together, just to make sure we kind of cover all lines. And saltwater, wonderful for backyards, not necessarily the best approach though for municipalities.
Wondered about that. Okay, thanks.
Very good. Not seeing any. Charles?
One of the things that I don't quite understand from the picture is how much shaded area there would be for spectators, mothers, fathers, grandparents parents that bring their children, that they actually want to go into the swimming area so that they can watch their children, make sure their children are behaving. And usually they park those people underneath the tents and umbrellas, this sort of thing. And I know a pool that I'm familiar with, there's a large area that gets, it gets filled with parents, watching. How many parents can we handle on something like this?
That's a great point. We know that shade is important. These early concepts just kind of show generalities where here's where some shades are going to go. As you get more into the details of the program, like here's what we need to do, then you start looking at that deck space and kind of figuring out more, okay, here we're going to have an active program. Here we're going to try to do swim team. Here we're going to try to do this. Here we're going to add a little bit more seating areas, maybe to add an access gate. Here we're going to put in more shade structure. So you're going to see that change. On this concept, you see a little bit more of the shade structure on the side. On that second concept, you see that big green space that's kind of left open. That's not going to just be just a big green space. There'll be programmed items in there with some shade, yeah. But no, it's a great point to bring it out, because it absolutely, in our state, shade is important, and it's at a premium.
If I might add, you mentioned expansion earlier. A shade is one of those areas you can easily expand. Just come in a core drill, put a new tent up, new poles. So it's very easy to expand. Also easy to expand the parking lot. You might address that too. But, initially you put the parking lot in as budget allows. If we could design the structure or the facility so that parking could be added maybe along roads as they come in, or maybe in another section of parking could be added very easily. So, and also the building as well. So it could be set up or designed to have expansion in it as well.
Great, very good. So we don't really have any action we need to take at this, or?
No, sir, no action at this time.
Very good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Excellent.
Brandy?
There's no action, so what's the next steps?
The next steps, as we had talked about, is them coming up with this concepts and everything to kind of refine, and then eventually go out for a request for a bid to figure out. But we're still going to need to put a little bit more refinement into the overall proposal, but use this as a backdrop to sit there and say, okay, here's kind of what we're envisioning. The report that I assume that we will get from Schaefer will also sit there and kind of benchmark. We've seen two different concepts. What's the bottom end of the spectrum? What's the top end of the spectrum? So that council can kind of take a look at that and figure out, okay, that's right in line with what we were looking at, a little more, a little less, and kind of sit there and figure that out going forward so that we can somewhat refine the concept before we go out to official bid.
Yeah. Very good, thank you. Move to item 6, discuss and consider approval of the North Park Industrial Edition. A final plat for property located 1/3 mile south of 69th Street North and west of Broadway Avenue, or 6701 North Broadway. Russ.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, Russ Avey. We have 2 planning and zoning items on tonight's agenda, 2 plats, 2 final plats. The first is for North Park Industrial Edition. It's an 80-acre plus or minus 1 lot plat south of 69th Street and west of Broadway. This property was recently zoned earlier this year to the LI or the I-1 district, light industrial district, and now platted for industrial purposes, which will extend the land use pattern along this stretch of Broadway. Planning Commission recommended approval 7-0, and I'll stand for any questions that the council may have.
Thank you. Jim?
Don't have any questions, so it'd be nice to see this parcel moving forward, and understood it well. So I would make a motion that we approve the final plat as presented and per staff comments.
Ben?
Second.
Any further discussion on this item? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Move to item 7, discuss and consider approval of the Champtown addition, a final plat for property located between 53rd Street North and 61st Street North, west of I-135 highway.
And with the assumption that we're all fairly familiar with this property, this is a 90-acre final plat that's subdivided into 3 lots and several reserves. Lot 3 is the bulk of the Champtown addition. That'll house most of the major features planned and programmed for the site. Lot 1 is off to the west. That would be the site for recreational activities. And Lot 2 to the north would be more of a pad site to host commercial, supportive commercial endeavors. Planning Commission also recommended approval of the final plat 7-0, and will stand for any questions that you may have.
Ben?
Yeah, I don't have any questions, so I'd move to approve the final plat as presented.
Jim?
Nor do I, so I'd second it.
Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. To item 8, discuss and consider a resolution to determine the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas, and making certain finding with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, paving on Whitson Way and Beaumont Street.
Yes, sir. The next 2 items go along with the final plat just being approved for Champtown. Back nearly 2 years ago, council approved a resolution for construction of Whitson Way in Echo Hills Commercial Second Edition with an estimated cost of right around 4.8, almost 4.9 million. Since then, the concept and the layout of Whitson Way as well as Beaumont Street has changed substantially, prompting an updated petition. The updated petition is signed by the owner of records of more than 1/2 of the property. The improvements include constructing paving of Whitson Way from the south line of Lot 5, Block A, to the north line of Lot 1, Block B in Echo Hills Commercial Second, including a cul-de-sac at the end. It also includes Beaumont Street at the east line of Reserve A, Champtown Park City, including driveways, a hammerhead turnaround, and drainage where necessary. The improvements shall be constructed in accordance with the city standards, plans, and specifications either prepared for or approved by the city engineer. The estimated or probable cost of the proposed improvements is now $1,032,000 and includes a pro rata rate of 1% per month from the time and after the date of the adoption of the resolution. The proposed improvement district to be assessed to the cost is shown as lots 1 through 3, Block A, Champtown, Lot 1, Block B, Echo Hills, Second Edition. And then the method of assessment is on a fractional basis there, shown in this staff summary sheet. All apportionment of the cost of the improvements is between the improvement district and the city. It's 100% to be against the improvement district and 0% for the city. Staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Sean. Ben?
Yeah, I'd make a motion to approve Resolution 1204-2024.
Thank you, Jim.
I'm going to second that one also.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion on this item, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. On to item 9, discuss and consider resolution determining the advisability of the making of certain internal improvements in the city of Park City, Kansas, making certain findings with respect thereto, and authorizing and providing for the making of the improvements in accordance with such findings, as being paving Aircap Drive. Sean?
Yes, sir. As council is well aware, just last year, council approved the authorization of construction of improvements of Aircap Drive. That project has been completed. The original petition was listed for $4,297,000. The attached updated resolution is strictly to clarify the benefit district now that the final plat has been approved. Previously, the petition was done using meets and bounds, and now that the final plat has been approved, they would rather do that according to lot and block rather than meets and bounds. Everything else remains the same. The way that it's going to be assessed on a fractional basis, the overall amount of $4,279,000. Now it's just listed as Lot 1, Block A, Lot 2, Block A, Lot 3, Block A. Again, 0% towards the city and 100% towards the improvement district. So staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Sean. Jim?
Hey, Sean, just for cross-checking and making sure we don't have numbers inverted. In the opening paragraph, the 2022 value was $4,297,000. Now it's $4,279,000.
That's a typo, sir. They're the exact same.
Is it which one? So we get it in the minutes right.
I'd have, $4,297,000.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is that a motion?
I don't have it in front of me, but I would move to approve it.
Resolution 1205.
1205-1220, or 2024.
You're motioning to approve that?
Yeah. I
Okay.
would move to approve resolution 1205-2024.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Terry?
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. On to item 10, discuss and consider resolutions authorizing phases 1, 2, and 3, stormwater drainage facilities projects.
Yes, sir. As council, again, is well aware, not too long ago, we recently passed an updated stormwater master plan. It was broken down into 3 different phases covering 3 different years. The proposed plan was to complete all the improvements in a relatively short time period, then take that to bond and go ahead and use the stormwater drainage fees to pay for that over time. Charter Ordinance C-39-2019 provides that the city may file with the governing body a multi-year capital improvement program. So that is what this is doing is tonight is authorizing all 3 of those phases, phases 1, 2, and 3, that'd be 3 years. It's important to note, we have the total cost. In phase 1, there's 5 projects for $1.369 million. For phase 2, there's 4 projects. Phase 3, there's 6 projects. About 3 months ago, staff went out with an RFQ for engineering firms, and actually we received 5 or 6 different. We went ahead and did an assessment of all. It's stormwater drainage facilities, and so we have numerous qualified engineering firms to take a look at that. So we use this opportunity to somewhat spread the wealth around, with Wilson and Company being the one that had recently done the overall stormwater drainage proposal. It made sense, them to be the closest one to take on phase 1. And then we've actually selected 2 other engineering firms to do phase 2 and phase 3. So shortly after this, the next item up is a contract with Wilson and Company for phase 1. But this is, again, the ordinance is approving all 3 of the phases in our capital improvement program.
Thank you, Sean. Ben?
And just real, this is
Not an ordinance, sorry.
This is beginning the work on the fees that are now, as of April 1st, being assessed on the water bills, correct?
That is
For-
correct,
Based
sir.
on,
That is correct.
so I will say it's great to see that we're moving simultaneously with this as the fees are now being assessed, collected, paid, however you want to look at it. We're performing the work that's so necessary, especially in these areas that tend to have high amounts of flooding issues. So thank you, staff, for working on this and for Wilson and Company initially designing this with this plan in mind. So I'd make a motion to approve Resolution 1206-2024, 1207-2024, and 1208-2024, resolutions amending and supplementing Resolution Number 1069-2021 and 1081-2021, which authorized and provided for payment of the cost of certain improvements included in the multi-year capital improvement plan for the city of Park City, Kansas.
Thank you, Ben. Terry?
Second.
Any further discussion on this? Okay, Call the vote. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. On to item 11, discuss and consider approval of a letter of agreement with Wilson and Company for design, engineering, and construction inspection of Channel 4 drainage improvements.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You have before you an agreement outlining the scope and fee for Wilson and Company to provide engineering services for Channel 4 drainage improvements listed as Phase 1, included in the city's stormwater master plan and identified as a top priority. The agreement is written under a lump sum basis for design and engineering and relies on a cost per hour as needed basis for our construction inspection. The total cost is $310,750. This is an unbudgeted item to be paid from the capital project fund, and staff recommends approval. I stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Gina. Is there a motion? Ben?
Yeah, I'd go ahead and make a motion that we approve what Jenna said. Give me a second, I'm pulling it back up. Sorry, I pulled it down real quick. For the mayor to approve and authorize the mayor to execute a letter of agreement with Wilson and Company in the amount not to exceed $310,750 to be paid from the capital project fund.
Jim?
I'd second that.
Any further discussion on this? Okay, call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Move to item 12, discuss and consider approval of a bid from Andale Construction for paving, waterline, and storm sewer for Air Capital Industrial, 6th edition.
A bid opening was conducted on March 27th for Big Street 6th Edition roadway, storm sewer, and water line for Air Capital Industrial Park 6th Edition. A total of 3 companies submitted bids. Andale Construction submitted the lowest overall bid of $1,134,982.50, which was below the engineer's estimate of $1,412,468. In your package, you have an attached copy of the bid tabulation as well as the contract from Andale. It is authorized and funded via temporary financing until long-term general obligation bonds, and staff recommends approval.
Thank you, Sean. Do I have a motion? Jim?
I don't have any questions, so I'd move to approve the bid tabulation and authorize the mayor to finalize and execute a contract with Andale Construction in the amount not to exceed $1,134,982.50 to pay it out of the capital projects fund.
Thank you, Jim. Troy?
I second.
Okay. Motion and a second. Not seeing any further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed 7-0. Move to item 13, consider an ordinance amending section 5-1106 of the municipal code related to the licensing of private security agencies. Doug?
Mayor and council, this is a regulatory ordinance that we adopted several meetings ago, generally in response to information that we'd received that Amazon was ready to hire a private security agency to provide security services for their facility, their large facility up on North Broadway. The scheme that we adopted several meetings ago was patterned after what the city of Wichita has. And in trying to implement that after it was enacted by the city council, the police department discovered that there was a problem obtaining background checks, which are a necessary thing to do in licensing the agencies and the individual security officers. It was anticipated that the KBI would do this and that we'd pass on the expense to the applicants. It turns out that the KBI requires that it be in the ordinance that they are to do the security background checks, and we didn't have that. So what this ordinance does is just adds subparagraph H towards the end of the ordinance amendment that you have for section 5-1106. which then calls out the KBI as the agency that will do these background investigations for the city of Park City in implementing this ordinance. So I would recommend that council adopt this amendment to Section 51106 of that ordinance.
Thank you, Doug. Troy?
I don't have any questions. I'd move to approve ordinance 1192-2024, an ordinance amending section 5-1106 of the municipal code related to private security agency licensing and repealing the original of said section 5-1106.
Thank you, Troy. Brandy?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, this will be a roll call vote. Madam Clerk?
George Glover,
Aye.
Van Salzetta,
Aye.
Charles Schwenke,
Aye.
Terry Osborne,
Aye.
Troy Hill,
Aye.
Brandy Bailey,
Aye.
Jim Schrader.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0. On to item 14, discuss and consider bid for improvements to the City Administration Center.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. With planned increase in staffing over the next 5 years, staff is recommending improvements to the City Administration Building to include creating 3 additional storage spaces in the basement, subdividing 2 upstairs storage spaces, installing partitions, and repurposing 1 space to create a total of 6 new office spaces. 3 commercial contractors were solicited for bids and completed a walkthrough of the spaces. One of those did not respond or provide a quote afterwards. The second one provided a quote, but did not include the necessary electrical improvements. Attached is the quote from JMG Construction for a cost of $138,350. So you have a very detailed construction cost on that. And then also, if you look at the diagram of the City Administration Center, there are spaces on here that are highlighted, and you can see what these proposed improvements would look like. Divide the existing storage room into 2 separate offices, and if you look, you see Office 1 and 2 that is in yellow. That is the space that's over on our city side that currently is storage space. Construct new offices outside of my office. There's currently just a bookcase that is there, and so you see that as number 3. Divide existing storage room into 2 spaces, 4 and 5. That's over on the police side of the house. Install new service desk window in the existing storage room for Sedgwick County. And if you can acclimate yourself, this is the storage space that is out here. Remove the walls within existing detective investigations area. Remove the existing wall and combine with storage closet for the information technology office. Install improved soundproofing into those interview rooms. Install 2 passageway doors along the main police corridor, and construct 3 new storage rooms in the basement. So what you see is we are trying to add office space. It's kind of amazing that we've been here for 7 years, and we are now actually looking at needing more office space. Taking the storage down to the basement, we're able to reclaim the premium space upstairs for offices. So that's really a lot in our design and efficiency of operation. We would answer any questions.
Not seeing any questions. Jim?
I just find it interesting that only 7 years ago, we built this building, and at the time, we thought it was huge, and we were worried about overbuilding, and we thought, no, we got a growing city, and here we are, only 7 years later. Now, only having this, it seems like $138,000 is not a small amount, but just imagine what that would have been if we'd underbuilt and had to expand this building. So here we get to recuperate some offices. So I think it's a great use of the space, and I support it, and I would move to authorize the mayor to finalize and execute the contract with JMG Construction in the amount not to exceed $138,350 to be paid out of the general fund.
Thank you, Jim. Terry?
Second.
Okay. I would ask, Sean, in this, you and I visited prior, in this bid or in this project, are we able to get the infrastructure and electrical for what we wanted to put on, kind of, lighting on the building?
Yes, sir.
We can include that in this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That is correct. I do want to note one thing, though, because we've got two different bids actually going on. So we talk about office space number 6, which is the space in the back, and it is being proposed right now if that's to be converted to look exactly like the office windows across the way for use of Sedgwick County. That is not included in the $138,000 bid. That is a separate bid, and we have been in touch with Sedgwick County just to see if there would be a willingness to either pay that cost or cost share, if that is a now dedicated space. And again, that hasn't even been broached with council to see if they're supportive of that being a long-term solution for Sedgwick County. So the $138,350 takes care of everything in yellow and green except for this back little office in this council chambers. I did want to clarify that.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Okay, motion by Jim, seconded by Terry. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. On to item
Thank
15.
you.
On to item 15, discuss and consider changes to the new home buyer incentive program.
Yes, sir. As reported in January, the new home buyer incentive plan was suspended in '21 due to the strength of the economy and limited supply of housing options available. But it was reinstated back in January of last year due to the economy, inflation, interest rates, and how they negatively impacted the housing market in Sedgwick County and specifically Park City. The city currently renewed the offer of the home buyer incentive program, which is $2,500 for new home purchases where the developer or the builder participates by also offering $3,000 towards closing costs. Despite the new incentive, new home sales still remain down from previous years. And checking with neighboring cities, staff discovered that there's only a few neighboring communities that even offer housing initiatives, and most are reporting similar results. Over the last couple months, because one of the council members had brought this to our attention, so we've been working on it for a couple months, we reached out to both developers and real estate agents for recommendations on more appropriate or innovative housing incentives to, quote, move the needle. Recommendations discussed included city participating in installing some of the infrastructure to reduce the cost of overall special assessments, rebating a portion of ad valorem tax, and/or increasing the current initiative amount based on the value of a home. It was suggested that there are very few buyers out there that actually, quote, shop special assessments. Most of them are, quite honestly, unfamiliar with what special assessments are until after they've already signed on the dotted line and start making their house payments. And so because of that, city's participation in the installing of infrastructure was not met with a lot of support from both developers as well as real estate agents. So before tonight is just a recommendation for council's consideration to increase the new existing home buyer's incentive based on the price of a home, and then actually combine it with something similar our next door neighbor community does, which is a partial reimbursement of the city's portion of the ad valorem tax over 5 years. Depending on the value of the home, the break-even point for both, if you combine the two of them, of an upfront incentive as well as an ad valorem reimbursement, would be somewhere between 5 to 6 years. And so I have it broken down into a purchase price of a new home from $250,000 or less. There would be the initial home buyer incentive that they would receive up front, and then it goes on up with the value of the home. And each one of these would be partnered with a 75% abatement for their first 5 years. Guidelines would require that the applicants complete and submit an application form and to be contracted with a licensed builder, realtor, or developer. The applicants would also be required to furnish an IRS W-9 form with their application. All construction must be performed in accordance with applicable city building codes by a licensed contractor of the city. Payment would only be issued once a certificate of occupancy is issued by the building inspector, and the applicants must provide a copy of the HUD-1 settlement statement to prove that they actually closed on the property. The new home buyer's incentive and partial reimbursement of the city's ad valorem tax applies only to the first-time applicant, first-time occupant of the home. So that way, if somebody did this and 2 years later moved out, that would not carry over into the next owners. And the applicants must certify that the structure is going to be used as their primary residence and not a rental property. As far as the fiscal impact, it has a longer range, naturally, if we're doing this for 5 years, depending on the value of the home. But currently, as it stands right now, the budgeted amount for the homeowners' incentives, all the programs, which includes the renovation of older homes, the new home buyers, and the paint, that's for 2024 was $125,000, and $50,000 was allocated towards new home buyer incentives. To date, 8, actually, as of today, that's 9 applications have been received, totaling $22,250. So we're basically only 3 months in, and we've gone through half of the new home buyers incentive. So it's having some impact moving the needle, but still, this is a recommendation or a proposal for council's consideration.
Thank you, Sean. Ben?
Yeah, Sean, thank you for working on this. I know we've talked back and forth for 6, 7, 8 months on this program or what it could look like. And anytime that you deal with incentives, there's always the catch of private-public component of it, what that looks like there. The one thing that I will say that I like about this is that the public side of this is it's open to any developer, any construction company, anybody, any resident that's making a first-time home buyer purchase, or not a first-time home buyer, but purchasing the home for the first time.
Yes.
If I'm still mess that up, but the rules will specify what I'm messing up here. So it's not a matter of picking winners and losers in this, in a true sense. Everyone's giving the opportunity here. Some of the things that we have coming down the pike that I think are important to understand. I mean, we know there's a housing crisis, not just locally, but nationally. We know we have the med center, not the med center, but the biomed center. There we go. That's going to be coming in over the next few years downtown Wichita. That's going to be bringing students, faculty, a whole group of people that are going to be needing housing as part of this there. We know that there's other development already planned and going on, and so the crunch on housing is only going to continue to grow at the rate that everything is just kind of moving. It's funny to think through. I was telling somebody the other day when I bought my first car that had to be financed. The interest rate was 12.5%, and now nobody would think of buying a car. Well, I won't say nobody, but people wouldn't think of buying a car at 12.5% because that just seems so absurd. But that was just 20 years ago. So now we're back up to 6%, 7% on home interest rates. And, you know, the reality is that might be the new norm for several years, if not for much longer. So the housing need is still going to exist. People are going to start buying again and everything as the stabilization happens. And I feel like it's important on us as a community that's already looking ahead and trying to position ourselves for growth, as our motto says, that we take a holistic approach to how we deal with housing issues. The nice thing about the plan that you have worked through, I know like I said, we've gone back and forth on how this could work, is that it's going to incentivize every level of home build. It's not saying you have to build the $400,000 house or $600,000 house or $350,000 house. There are levels to it. But if I went out, I don't think I could, but if you just went out and built a $175,000 house, I would still qualify for an incentive under this program. So I feel like this is looking at it in a wide range, trying to get the best amount of work in this. I support this program. I know that, no doubt, as we discuss, and hopefully there's more discussion than just me on this, as I feel like we can produce a really great plan that's going to be the trendsetter for our area. And as we expand and as we grow in Park City, I think it's important, again, just that we lead the way and let our suburb to the south take a few notes from us.
Thanks, Ben. Jim?
Yeah, just to kind of tag on to that, a few years ago, I thought the economy was strong enough that we didn't need stuff like this, and housing was growing just fine. And, you know, here just a few years later, it's quite a bit different. The interest rates, quite honestly, have chewed up most of that margin and making it more difficult for people to buy homes. One thing that I had my eye on and actually like about this is, you know, when you have a flat incentive, a flat number for an incentive, that doesn't help. That helps lower purchase prices way more than it does a large purchase price as an as a percentage of the cost. This is roughly 1% of the cost, give or take, and it fluctuates, and so therefore you're spending more money in our community, you're getting a little better incentive. I mean, it's designed to attract investments. So I kind of like it. It's a new twist on it, and I think it's probably good timing to bring it back and tweak it and see if we can't generate some more activity here.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Terry?
This is new construction only?
New construction, yes, sir.
Okay. To me, the new home buyer incentive is a little waffly there. New home buyer, somebody coming in, buying an existing home, that's a new home buyer. Okay, so, you know, they're a new home buyer. Okay, they're a new homeowner, they're a new home buyer, but they didn't, you know, so it might be just
Reworded.
maybe reworded a little bit. Just a thought there, because it's really new home builder incentive,
Yes, sir.
in my opinion.
Thank you, Terry. Charles?
Well, I want to make sure I understand this exactly. If you take a $250,000 house, then they would get $2,500 from the city and also $3,000 from the builder? Or was that?
No, sir. As far as the builder's participation, and that's one of the questions that we've asked, right now, our current home buyer incentive does rely on the builder sitting there, cost contributing $3,000 towards that. I think over the years that we have found out, even though that's the original intent, sometimes that has been problematic because a builder has come along and said, yeah, I'll go ahead and throw in $3,000 towards your closing costs, but the price of the house just went up $3,000. So that's not really the home builder providing the incentive. This incentive would completely take the builder out of it. Because we asked, well, where's the participation from the builder? Talking with the developers and the builders, and they're like, trust us, we have already reduced our prices enough trying to get people into Park City, trying to get people. There are some builders that have 5, 6 houses that have been completed over the last several months that are just sitting there carrying the note on it, and they have reduced their price. So again, I'll take them at face value that they've done that. So this takes them out of the equation. Okay. So in that particular case, it would be strictly $2,500 from the city. And then, once they pay their annual taxes on a regular reoccurring basis, it would be rebating the city's portion of the ad valorem, because we can't do it for other taxing entities, but 75%. So that makes certain that they're staying up and current on their specials and their taxes. They'd have to pay it in order to get reimbursed for it.
Okay, would that also include the special taxes for streets and stuff?
No,
if it's
sir.
in an
Special
area?
taxes are completely separate. Those-
Separate, so it'd be basically on the city's ad valorem tax. But, that's a heck of a deal, though. I would think that this would have some effect on our numbers.
Yes, sir. If you look at it, under the example that you gave of a $250,000 house, their city portion of the ad valorem tax is somewhere roughly around $1,200 a year. So that would be $900 reimbursed back to them.
For 5 years.
For 5 years. So there's there's $4,500 plus the original, so that's close to $7,000 incentive to doing this. And that's why we looked at it as far as a break-even point between that time period. One of our sister cities that has a portion of it, they don't give the initial upfront incentive, but they reimburse 100% of the city's ad valorem tax for 5 years. So we looked at that. That equates out to somewhere around a 7 to 8 year return on the investment, whereas this was 5 to 6 years. So that's why we felt it was a little bit more appropriate, because I know council's direction over the past couple of years is it's really hard for the council to say, hey, we're going to do 100% abatement. So this way, it's almost kind of like a pilot agreement under an IRB, to where, hey, you're going to contribute 25%, but you still have to pay your taxes, and then you would get reimbursed. So.
Super.
Thank you, Sean. Troy?
You may have answered this, but I've been sitting here trying to figure out what ad valorem tax is, because I'm the new guy.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain that to me?
Property tax.
Property tax.
Well, I get that,
Well,
but
so the way that we always calculate it, I do, and right or wrong, whatever you have the appraised value from the Sedgwick County Appraiser's Office, then for residential, 11.5% of that comes out with your assessed value. And from that, then you reduce it to a mill rate, which is what you pay for every 1,000 of that. So I divide it by 1,000. And then you multiply it by the city's mill rate, which is currently right now roughly about 43 mills. So that's why in that particular case, for a $250,000 house, it comes out to about $1,200 a year.
Okay.
So
All right.
the 43 mills is just a part and parcel of our overall tax rate, which depending on whether you're in the north half of the city or the south half of the city, is somewhere around 158 to 149 mills total.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, I'm a proponent of it because I've used it. But the tax reimbursement, that's pretty cool. I like it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ben?
Yeah, and I think I don't want to over-answer, but I think to Troy's question, the ad valorem tax is basically what goes into our general account for operations as the city, is I think what we were after there on that one.
Yeah, it's proportional to the value of, is what it, ad valorem means.
It's what funds our city.
Among other things.
Yes.
Sales tax,
Yes.
property tax.
No, I don't know. Like I said, I think this is great. I think we have a solid plan that helps move us forward. Obviously, there's going to be some cost associated with this, just in terms of now how are our other home incentive programs doing this year? You mentioned our new home buyer or home builders credit. How are the other programs, and are we going to maybe need to look at using some of that there, or do you think we're just going to be unbudgeted money?
I do believe that there's probably a good chance, again, we have 125,000 for all three of the, well, actually more than that, because we also have new driveways incentive if you live in the Horseshoe area. I think later on towards the end of the year, there may be an opportunity for us to go ahead and reallocate that, because quite honestly, just within the last 1 or 2 months, there has been an uptick on the new home buyers incentive. As far as the paint program or the general renovation type, it's been dismal. People are not making applications for that yet. So, but it's still early on, and we're just now coming out of winter, and you would expect spring and summertime where people may get the urge to start making home improvements. So, but again, that's the reason why I feel under what is currently budget for homeowner incentives, for the initial upfront incentive, I do believe that there's money within the budget to take care of whatever the demand may be throughout. But it will have a longer lasting impact as we go forward. New homes are being built, and then for the first 5 years, if we're going to reimburse 75% of the ad valorem tax, it will definitely have an impact on that.
Thank you. I'll just throw in year-to-date on housing permits. We are at 5. There was 2 in February and 3 in March.
Yep.
Last year at that time, we were at 25.
Yep. I do know out of the last 2 or 3 applications that we processed, it was already standing inventory. Homes that had already been built and sitting, most of them were built towards the end of last year, sitting there, and now homeowners are coming in, or home buyers are coming in and buying those rather than contracting to build new.
Yeah, it's similar to what we're doing with hiring incentives. where the market is not, the market's such a place right now where in order to retain talent, and get talent, retain talent and such, you're having to take steps that you maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you wouldn't. And I think, again, knowing what we have coming in our region, not to mention what could be coming within our city, I'd rather be proactive than reactive. And I feel like we've done a good job. I don't know if there's any other discussion, but I feel comfortable with this here. I know that there's gonna be effects that we have to plan for and adjust for as we move forward, but we have plenty of time to make those adjustments over the next coming years as we move through this. So I'd make a motion to approve the proposed home buyers incentive plan as presented to be paid from the general fund governing body housing incentives.
Thank you, Ben. Brandy?
I'll second, but I have a question. Just, it's an administrative. So if we're reimbursing the property taxes up for 5 years, how's that gonna be handled? Does the resident have to come to the city every year and say, here's my property tax, I've paid it? Or is someone on the back end gonna be watching to see if they paid the property tax and automatically reimburse that homeowner?
The way I understand it, because like I said, one of our sister city does this already, but the resident, once they have paid their taxes and they can bring in their tax bills showing that, hey, I've gone ahead and paid my taxes for 2024, and I'm part of this program, then we can go ahead and cut them a check for 75% of the city's portion of the ad valorem.
So it's relying on the homeowner to come back and ask for the
Yes.
reimbursement?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Brandy. All right, we had a motion by Ben, second by Brandy. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next to governing body reports. Charlie's not here tonight, so George, you're first.
Yeah, I was encouraged by the number of folks who participated in the pool survey. I thought that was great. And moving forward, I'm excited on where that goes, so it's encouraging. Kudos to our community relations board on a successful Easter egg hunt that we had. Also, our annual fishing derby, we're working on that as we speak. That's June 15th from 9 to 11 at Chisholm Point Pond. It's free and open to the public. All age groups from 0 to 100 can participate. So we look forward to that, look forward to more information on our webpage. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben?
Yeah, I want to again say thank you to the staff that worked on this last proposal that we just discussed. Thank you for the work. I know it's been several months going back and forth on what we could produce, and so thank you for the work on that. I will have my coffee and convos this Saturday at 9. I almost said 8. I am not being there at 8. 9 o'clock at Lakers. Invite you to come on out here. It'll be hopefully a great time.
Thank you. Charles?
I think the drawing that you did and be able to add all the extra space or the offices, that was a good job. I mean, we really made some good use out of the little areas, and I commend you on that.
Thank you. Terry?
I'd just like to say, I like the renovations to the entryway sign on 61st Street. That really looks good. The turf really dressed that up. I enjoy seeing that. I would hope that we explore opportunities actually on 135 to invite travelers to stop into Park City. I mean, they see this sign as they've already made that decision to enter Park City and to come in. But let's invite travelers on 135, entice them to come to Park City.
So timely that you say that, and I guess in the environment we're in, I'll say hold our cold beverage, because there's a plan underway that we're working to bring to the council. Sean's working on right now to.
Must be my ESPN kicking in here.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Troy?
I don't really have anything. I did get to participate in the Easter egg hunt this year, first time, and the kids had a blast. I showed up way too early, so I sat around for a long time with the 2 under 4-year-old kids for like 30, 40 minutes, which was exhausting. So I was ready for a nap afterwards, but
You weren't late.
I was not late, so I didn't miss out anything. I did see Ben there, but yeah, great job. That was a lot of fun.
missed that, you're a bad grandpa, so
Yeah, it worked out great.
good deal. Brandy?
I have nothing tonight.
Okay, Jim?
As I was reviewing the packet tonight, or for tonight, and preparing for tonight, it just struck me of the dollars we were touching tonight. So I sat down and added them up. It's $43.5 million. So if that ever makes you lay awake at night, to know how much money you touched in one night. You know, it's impactful. It's great. We got a growing city and we can smartly think our way through things like this. 33 million of it's a bond issue. I really appreciated bond counsel's note that after this issuance, that we're at 17% our debt ratio is 17%, where it could be as high as 30%. So just as a quick snapshot, that tells me we're keeping things balanced here, even after spending that much money. So one thing I didn't hear said was a reminder of Brush and Limb Cleanup Day, and I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me. I think that's next.
May 20th, Saturday, May 28th.
May 28th?
20th.
April.
20th.
April.
There you go. I was going to say, wasn't it April?
April 20th, 8 to noon.
There you go. That's all I have.
Also, I just want to mention that Larry also mentioned that our bond rating is AA minus, which is very good. Something I guess I wanted to hit on, in looking around at the city, our wayfinding signs, I notice are starting to become aged and maybe ready for a tune-up or a replacement. I'd like us to take a look at these. I know several of them been hit by cars and lawnmowers and whatnot, and some of them are starting to look pretty rough. I'd like us to take a look at that and see if it's something that we need to just, I think they're probably close to 10 years old. Maybe it's time to replace those. Also, I'd like to know the status at the next meeting, the status of our 61st in Jacksonville repaving project. I know you were working on that, but just maybe an update for the public and the council. And at Brush and Limb Cleanup Day, that's already been discussed. The next thing I'd like to discuss as we're going into the budget years, maybe now that our roundabout at 61st and Broadway is a year, got a 1-year birthday. Maybe now that the public is trained to drive through that, that it may be a good time for us to do some landscape improvements in the middle of it, make it a little more sightly. And then I'd also have a question that I'd like maybe the police chief to maybe look at for us. I'm just curious of the change in traffic collisions at that intersection now that it's been open for a year versus the last year that it was a four-way with a controlled traffic light. I'm just wondering the difference in injury collisions and non-injury collisions during that time. Okay, if we could have that at the next meeting, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. And now I'd entertain a non-debatable motion to adjourn. And Ben.
Yeah, real quick, sorry, I didn't forget, you mentioned roundabouts, and that got me. Today at WAMPO, we had our meeting, and as we get into the next series, our 85th and Broadway project is towards the top there for consideration, and that, I think I sent you that screenshot of that, as well as our plan for the 61st Street exit off of 135 has also reached towards the top, and then about number 6 is our 53rd Street divergent diamond plan. So those are looking promising as we get into the plans for WAMPO on funding piece. And then I will just tell Terry by way of this, I actually received my first complaint in home over the new sign, and that was from my 3-year-old son who saw the sign and let me know he did not approve of it because it's too small. So that was my first complaint like that. But with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ben. And Jim.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0, we're adjourned.